The morning was supposed to be effortless, bright lights, friendly chatter, and Samuel L. Jackson's unmistakable charm lighting up the Good Morning America set. Fans had been buzzing all week about his appearance, especially since it was tied to the release of his new film. The GMA crew expected a routine segment, a few jokes, maybe a classic Jackson quip or two, but what they got instead would become one of the most talked about live TV moments of the year. The show opened smoothly. Michael Strahan, with his signature grin and calm confidence, introduced Samuel like he was welcoming an old friend. "Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Samuel L. Jackson," he announced, his voice booming with enthusiasm. The audience erupted into applause as Jackson strutted out in a sharp charcoal suit in dark shades, exuding coolness and command with every step. He shook hands with Michael, gave a nod to Laura Spencer and Robin Roberts, then turned toward the cheering audience with that familiar smirk that said, "Yeah, I know you missed me." The energy was perfect, light, lively, the kind of television moment that producers love. For the first few minutes, everything went smoothly. They talked about the film, Jackson's role as a morally complicated antihero, and the fun he had on set. His charisma filled the studio, and Strahan kept the banter going with easy charm. Then, the mood shifted. Strahan, ever the playful interviewer, leaned forward with a grin that was just a bit too mischievous. "So, Sam," he said, "word on the street is you've been giving directors a hard time lately, saying lines your own way, showing up and rewriting dialogue. Is that true, or are your co-stars exaggerating?" Jackson froze for a fraction of a second, then laughed, but it wasn't his usual warm laugh. It was sharp, short, and carried a warning underneath. "You mean doing my job?" he asked. The audience chuckled, unsure whether to laugh or stay quiet. Michael smiled, trying to keep things light. "I'm just saying, you've got a reputation for being, intense on set." "Some people are saying." "Some people," Jackson interrupted, his tone calm but cutting. He removed his sunglasses and set them on the table in front of him. "Who are these people, Michael?" The audience grew quiet. You could feel the tension rise. Laura Spencer's smile faltered for a second as she glanced toward the producers behind the cameras. Jackson leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with Strahan. "I've been doing this for over 40 years. When I show up on set, I show up to work. I don't mess around, and I don't waste time. If that's called being intense, then sure, I'll take it." Michael nodded, still smiling, but his eyes darted toward the crew. "Of course, man, you're one of the greats. I didn't mean anything by it," he said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "It's all love here." Jackson didn't blink. "Love's not what that sounded like," he said flatly. The studio audience exchanged awkward looks. The producers were waving behind the cameras, signaling Strahan to pivot the topic. But Michael, trying to salvage the humor, chuckled nervously. "Come on, Sam, you know I'm just messing with you. It's Good Morning America, not Pulp Fiction." The remark was meant as a joke, but it landed like a spark in gasoline. Jackson's expression changed instantly. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You think this is a joke to me?" he said quietly. "You invite me here to clown around instead of talking about the movie?" Strahan's smile faltered. No, not at all," he said quickly. "We love the movie." "Nah," Jackson interrupted again, his voice rising slightly. "See, this is what happens when people forget why I'm here. You wanna play games, make sound bites for the internet. I'm here to talk about the work. Not whatever gossip y'all been hearing." The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the live audience didn't dare react. Strahan's usual calm demeanor cracked for the first time as he stammered, "Sam, we didn't mean any." But Jackson was already standing. "You know what? I'm good," he said, unclipping his mic and tossing it onto the couch. "You have a good morning, Michael. I'm out." The audience gasped. Strahan blinked, caught completely off guard. "Wait, come on, Sam," he began, but Jackson was already walking off the set, removing his earpiece as he went. Laura Spencer and Robin Roberts exchanged stunned looks as the cameras desperately tried to cut to a commercial. The final image before the feed switched to black was Strahan sitting in awkward silence, his smile gone, his hands clasped tightly together. The moment lasted less than a minute, but it sent shockwaves across television and social media. As the commercial break began, the set erupted in whispers. Producers were scrambling, directors shouting instructions into headsets, and the audience murmured in disbelief. Strahan just sat there for a few seconds, stunned, before exhaling and saying under his breath, "Damn. That went south fast." What was supposed to be a routine morning show interview had just turned into live television history, and the storm brewing online was only just beginning. When Good Morning America cut to that sudden commercial break, the control room was chaos. Producers were talking over one another, trying to decide whether to continue with the rest of the show or address what had just happened. Samuel L. Jackson, one of Hollywood's most respected icons, had just walked off live television after clashing with Michael Strahan, and millions had witnessed it in real time. Inside the studio, you could feel the tension hanging in the air even after the cameras stopped rolling. Strahan stood up slowly, rubbing the back of his neck as the audience buzzed with confusion. "What just happened?" someone in the front row whispered. Laura Spencer leaned toward Michael and murmured, "It'll blow over, he just needs a minute." But the look on Strahan's face said he wasn't so sure. By the time the show returned from break, Robin Roberts had taken the lead. Her professionalism was flawless, though her tone carried an edge of strain. "We had an unexpected moment earlier in the show," she said smoothly, "but we'll move forward with more great stories for you this morning." Strahan forced a polite smile, but his usual sparkle was gone. Viewers could sense it. Something had shifted. Meanwhile, Samuel L. Jackson was already being escorted through the backstage hallway, his face tight with irritation. "That wasn't what we agreed on," he told a staffer who tried to apologize. "You bring me on to talk about the film, not to clown around on live TV." He didn't raise his voice, but every word was heavy. When the producer caught up to him near the exit doors, out of breath and apologetic, Jackson stopped long enough to deliver a cold truth: "You don't disrespect a man's craft for ratings." Then he stepped into his black SUV and was gone. It didn't take long for the world outside to find out. Within 10 minutes, social media was on fire. Someone from the studio audience had already uploaded a clip of Jackson walking off set, and within an hour, it had over 2 million views. The hashtags #Samuel L. Jackson walk off, #GMA clash, and #Strahan showdown dominated trending lists across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The public reaction was immediate and polarized. One camp defended Jackson passionately, arguing that he had every right to stand his ground. "You don't mess with Sam Jackson," one tweet read. "Man's been real since day one." Others sided with Strahan, calling the actor's reaction over the top, and suggesting that he couldn't take a joke. "Michael was just teasing," another user posted. "Sam needs to chill, it's morning TV, not an interrogation." By noon, media outlets were scrambling to capitalize on the drama. Entertainment headlines blared variations of Samuel L. Jackson walks off GMA set after heated clash with Michael Strahan. Talk show commentators analyzed every second of the footage. Body language experts were invited onto news segments to decode Jackson's expression right before he stormed off. Even late-night hosts began joking about it, with one quipping, "If you think the Avengers had explosive scenes, you should have seen this morning's GMA." Behind the scenes, though, the mood was far from humorous. GMA's producers held an emergency meeting to discuss how to address the incident. "Do we apologize publicly?" one asked. "Or just pretend it didn't happen?" Another suggested inviting Jackson back to smooth things over. Strahan himself sat silently for most of the meeting, finally speaking up to say, "I wasn't trying to offend him. I admire the guy, but live TV doesn't give you do-overs." That evening, Jackson's representatives released a concise statement: "Mr. Jackson values professionalism and respect in all creative discussions. Today's interview diverged from those expectations. He wishes the Good Morning America team the best." It was polite, but unmistakably cold. Strahan, on the other hand, took to social media the following day. Sitting in his home office, he recorded a brief message for his followers. "I've got nothing but respect for Samuel L. Jackson," he said, his tone calm but weary. "Sometimes, live TV takes a turn you don't expect. There's no bad blood, at least not from me. I hope we can all move past it." The video racked up millions of views, but opinions remained split. For days, tabloids feasted on the tension. Rumors spread that GMA executives had personally called Jackson to apologize, while others claimed Strahan was frustrated that he'd been made to look like the villain. Neither side confirmed any of it. Still, the incident had undeniably reignited public fascination with live talk shows, the unpredictability, the risk, the drama. By the end of the week, GMA's ratings had spiked dramatically. The episode featuring the clash became the most watched segment of the month. Some fans even joked that GMA should thank Jackson for the free publicity. But within the show's walls, no one was laughing. The atmosphere was cautious, the crew walking on eggshells, afraid the next interview might spiral the same way. As for Samuel L. Jackson, he moved on effortlessly. Days later, he appeared at a red carpet premiere for his film, posing confidently for cameras, looking entirely unbothered. When a reporter shouted, "Sam, any comment on what happened with Michael Strahan?" he chuckled. "Ain't nothing to comment on," he said coolly. "It happened, it's done. Let's talk about the movie, that's why I was there in the first place." The moment spread across the internet again, this time as a meme captioned, "When you're too classy to clap back." His calm response only fueled more admiration among fans who saw him as the ultimate professional, someone who refused to play Hollywood's PR games. Michael Strahan, meanwhile, addressed the topic one last time on air a week later. "We all have moments," he said, looking into the camera. "Sam's one of the greatest, and I'll always respect that. Live TV, you never know what'll happen." Robin Roberts smiled softly beside him and added, "That's why we keep showing up every morning, because it's real." And that was the truth of it. The moment was raw, unplanned, uncomfortable, but real. It reminded viewers that even the biggest stars and most seasoned hosts can collide when honesty meets pride. For Good Morning America, it was a storm that tested their composure. For Samuel L. Jackson, it was just another scene, one he didn't need a script to dominate.